People who have died and later been resuscitated report the same story of consciousness leaving their physical body, entering a realm of love and light, meeting angelic beings, and watching their entire lives flash before their eyes. Slight differences exist in various accounts of NDEs, but these pale next to the incredible universal similarities. The typical NDE is as follows. Michael Talbot wrote, "A man is dying and suddenly finds himself floating above his body and watching what is going on. Within moments, he travels at great speed through a darkness or a tunnel. He enters a realm of dazzling light and is warmly met by recently deceased friends and relatives. Frequently, he hears indescribably beautiful music and sees sights, rolling meadows, flower-filled valleys, and sparkling streams, more lovely than anything he has seen on earth. In this light-filled world, he feels no pain or fear, and is pervaded with an overwhelming feeling of joy, love, and peace. He meets a being and/or beings of light who emanates a feeling of enormous compassion and is prompted by the beings to experience a life review, a panoramic replay of his life. He becomes so enraptured by his experience of this greater reality that he desires nothing more than to stay. However, the being tells him that it is not his time yet and persuades him to return to his earthly life and re-enter his physical body." Dr. Raymond Moody wrote, "A man is dying, and as he reaches the point of greatest physical distress, he hears himself pronounced dead by his doctor. He begins to hear an uncomfortable noise, a loud ringing or buzzing, and at the same time feels himself moving very rapidly through a long dark tunnel. After this, he suddenly finds himself outside of his own physical body, but still in the immediate physical environment, and he sees his own body from a distance, as though he is a spectator. He watches the resuscitation attempt from this unusual vantage point and is in a state of emotional upheaval. After a while, he collects himself and becomes more accustomed to his odd condition. He notices that he still has a body, but one of a very different nature, and with very different powers from the physical body he has left behind. Soon, other things begin to happen. Others come to meet and to help him. He glimpses the spirits of relatives and friends who have already died, and a loving, warm spirit of a kind he has never encountered before, a being of light, appears before him. This being asks him a question, non-verbally, to make him evaluate his life, and helps him along by showing him a panoramic, instantaneous playback of the major events of his life. At some point, he finds himself approaching some sort of barrier or border, apparently representing the limit between earthly life and the next life. Yet he finds that he must go back to the earth, that the time for his death has not yet come. At this point, he resists, for by now he is taken up with his experiences in the afterlife and does not want to return. He is overwhelmed by intense feelings of joy, love, and peace. Despite his attitude, though, he somehow reunites with his physical body and lives. Death, it faces a judgment in which a divine being displays before the soul all the things, both good and bad, which it has done in its life, and makes the soul face them. The Bible also contains stories of typical near-death experiences, such as Paul on the road to Damascus. Paul was a persecutor of Christians until receiving his famous vision and conversion. Acts 26 describes how Paul saw a light from heaven above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me. He then heard the voice of Jesus speaking to him, asking, "Why persecutest thou me?" The voice then tells Paul that he has appeared to him for a purpose, to make him a minister and a witness of God. Dr. Raymond Moody wrote, "This episode obviously bears some resemblance to the encounter with the being of light in near-death experiences. First of all, the being is endowed with personality, though no physical form is seen, and a voice, which asks a question and issues instructions, emanates from it. When Paul tries to tell others, he is mocked and labeled as insane. Nonetheless, the vision changed the course of his life. He henceforth became the leading proponent of Christianity as a way of life, entailing love of others." 1 Corinthians 15 gets even more specific regarding the life after death state. It is asked, "How are the dead raised up? And with what body do they come?" To which it is answered that there are both terrestrial bodies and celestial bodies. natural bodies and spiritual bodies. In death, the scripture says, "We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, the dead shall be raised incorruptible." Dr. Raymond Moody wrote, "Interestingly, Paul's brief sketch of the nature of the spiritual body corresponds very well with the accounts of those who have found themselves out of their bodies. In all cases, the immateriality of the spiritual body, its lack of physical substance, is stressed, as are its lack of limitations. Paul says, for example, that whereas the physical body was weak and ugly, the spiritual body will be strong and beautiful. This reminds one of the account of a near-death experience in which the spiritual body seemed whole and complete, even when the physical body could be seen to be mutilated, and of another in which the spiritual body seemed to be of no particular age, i.e., not limited by time." Dr. Raymond Moody wrote, "How is it, we might well ask ourselves, that the wisdom of Tibetan sages, the theology and visions of Paul, the strange insights and myths of Plato, and the spiritual revelations of Swedenborg all agree so well, both among themselves and with the narratives of contemporary individuals who have come as close as anyone alive to the state of death?"